Okay, next section is on motivational interviewing. I know that was covered at the academy, and you guys have probably had substantial training with other places and stuff. But it's like one of the things that's a key to what we do in coaching. That I think a person can be a decent coach like without it. Just some people have it kind of innately. I think I've talked to people that they use this kind of stuff just because that's how they interact with people, but it can be a skill that can be learned and improved upon. It can go like amazing lengths of stuff you can add to it, but we'll just kind of cover some basics and we'll have a little role play on that. Some of the basics of it, you want to become a master of the open-ended question. Has everybody here had training on MI before at some point? Yeah. And learn how to answer a question with a question, just like politicians and car salespeople do. Which brings up another thing too. I was coaching somebody that used to be a supervisor and a trainer at a used car lot, and car salespeople have their own kind of motivational interviewing, except that instead of motivating you to be a better person, they're motivating you to buy a car that you probably can't afford. And it was fascinating. I don't remember some of the specifics, but it's kind of like the same approach, same ideas. It's the same science, just kind of flipped a little bit, like for less than honorable purposes, I guess. But it was fascinating stuff. I keep on meaning to look it up to see how it really works. Thing with MI is to learn it and then practice it every day. If you're waiting till, this is what happened to me at least, if you're waiting to the person you're coaching and stuff, are you going to remember what's going on? And if you have like a cheat sheet or whatever, it's kind of uncomfortable saying like, oh, put the person on pause, like, can you stop talking for a second? I got to look up what I need to ask you after you say this. So it's one of those things that it's a gradual process of learning with most people. But it's very valuable to learn, and what I would encourage you to do is like use it in your daily life. Not just when you're coaching or something like that, but you're just talking with a friend or a loved one, and everyone loves to be heard, everyone loves to be understood, and that's what this is about. So if you can do that for people, they're just going to love you. It's like, wow, you're such a good listener, and you that kind of stuff. And it's the same skills, Like I said, some people seem to have it innately or upbringing or whatever, but I think all of us could learn more about that and just listening to people and, without telling them what to do. Everyone hates being told what to do, especially people in recovery. But having that kind of stuff is just amazing. So. And one of the other things I'll mention, because do not give advice. Sometimes, very often, a person you're coaching or someone else will just ask you, well, what do you think? What do you think I should do? And we don't want to tell them what we think they should do. We want to find out what they think they should do. So, counteract that with another question. Hopefully that's not as simple as like, well, what do you want to do? But just kind of saying, well, no, it's not really up to me. I want to find out what you want to do. What are your thoughts on that? And then build on that. And hopefully they've got at least a couple thoughts. Like, well, maybe if I did this thing, maybe it's like, okay, and what could you do with that, or what are the possible outcomes, and help them weigh it, by asking them questions, So with MI, you can kind of, you can even like suggest things, if you get kind of skillful at it, make it kind of second nature. I don't know, I feel like sometimes I'm telling the person what to do without telling them what to do, just by suggesting things, and they're the ones making the decision, which is the important thing. The person that buys in on something, they feel it's their idea, they made the decision, they're going to be much more motivated than somebody, well, that's what they told me to do, or that's what they said I should do. It makes a big difference, and we can offer, bring in possibilities and stuff they may not have thought of through a question like, have you considered, this or whatever, or build off that. But if they get their own buy-in, because even if you they ask you your advice and you tell them, and they, oh, okay, great, I'm going to do that. They might just like get home a little later, and whether they're aware of it or not. And a lot of this stuff happens in our brains without us even being aware. We have a gut feeling about what happened or what our thoughts and what are their thoughts. But this stuff really, like, I'm going to talk about language in a little bit. It really affects people. How they're perceiving things and stuff. The language that we use, and if they're thinking that's what's best for me, they might think, yeah, this guy said this and that sounds good, but they might not do it. They may be more apt to follow up. And the thing is too, like with it's called cognitive dissonance, that if a person like tells themselves they agree to do something, they're going to do this, they kind of make yes. that's a good thing because they'll feel hopefully a little guilty or apprehensive for not doing it. They may not be aware it's coming from, but that can kind of motivate somebody, not always in every case, but that can be the thing that gets somebody to do something, and you can even use that in coaching, just say the person's agreed upon a plan or something, and you can kind of, follow up. So you said you're going to reflective listening. You're going to do this week. Yep. I'm going to make the phone calls or whatever, and that's going to create something in there that, to some degree, will help encourage them to do it because they don't want to feel useless, guilty, et cetera, whatever the case may be. But yeah, you don't want to give them a direct advice or opinion. You got to get around it, and unless it's something that is extremely important. And it's time for role play. So, if Ella can come up. Yeah, you volunteered.
I did that.
So my thought with this was role plays are great to demonstrate things, but if you ask somebody to volunteer, sometimes people volunteer, some people don't, but then you have to kind of set it up with that person to make it really useful for the group. And if trying to explain to somebody how to be a coachee or a coach in a certain situation seemed too much.
Oh, okay.
Oh, is that from I put my feet up?
Sure.
That is how I always coach.
Right.
Leaning back.
Me too.
Yep. Just, yeah. So.
Just kidding.
All right. So we didn't really work through these a whole lot. So.
Yeah. Pardon.
Yeah. Yes. So.
You'll be fine.
So, but we.
Just be
So.
a naturally obstructionist recovery.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's what we're working at. Then.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think I got it in me. Yeah.
The thought was to do two different sections here: challenging behaviors and motivational interviewing, but they kind of led to the same thing. So, so just to give you a scenario in case we don't make it explicit in our dialogue, want to do the I don't know?
Yeah, sure.
All right, so the first one is okay, you probably have all had or will have somebody that every question you ask, you get a I don't know for an answer. Well, so what? How do you feel about this? How's your recovery going? Have you? I don't know. And then they answer every question that way, or frequently, we want to find a way to elicit information from them in a non-obvious manner. So when that's always the answer. So you're the coach, I'm the coachee, so ask me a question.
So, how's your recovery going?
I don't know. I don't know.
Is there anything in particular that's been working really well or not working well for you lately?
I'm not really sure. I don't know.
Well, I know you were talking about last week. You were nervous about going over to your parents' house for the evening because they have wine with dinner, and that was going to be a challenge for you. And we talked about a couple things that did you end up talking to them about being uncomfortable in that situation? Actually, after we talked last week, I did, because I was there and I wasn't going to say anything, because they just do that, and I don't want to, why should they be denied their wine or whatever just because of me? But it was like I said, it was again, so I didn't want to go over there, I was avoiding them and stuff, and then they might cut me off money-wise or something if I do that a lot, so I don't really want that to happen. So I brought it up, and they were actually pretty receptive. I thought they'd be all angry at me, but You were pleasantly surprised?
I was.
So it sounds like some of the suggestions that you had come up with actually were really helpful for you in that situation. Is there, what did you feel like afterwards? Did that make you think about, give you any ideas for ways to give yourself that protection in any other difficult situations that might come up in the future?
Yeah, it did. Like there's a thing like at work. Sometimes everyone goes to the bar on Fridays where we get paid and stuff, and I could be part of the fun, but I don't want to be there. So I mentioned it kind of to my boss or the guys if we could maybe switch that. I don't know if it's going to happen, but.
That's really proud of you for taking the initiative to have that conversation with your boss. And that's really nice job.
Cool. Elle was perfect there, and we didn't actually rehearse this, but just bringing up something that we had talked about before, a plan that I had made or a solution that I had come up with through motivational interviewing, and that got me. I don't know. I had an idea then, and it came to mind, so I was able to open up and talk about that more, and then with that you can kind of build on it with the next person. The next question.
She was much more obliging than some of the usually the I don't knows last a whole lot longer. So
Yeah, I was
So
tempted
you were
to.
very
In the interest of time, I didn't. I wanted to do at least 12 times, but yeah, we only have so much time here, so okay.
okay.
Okay. Well, the next one we'll do is what I think of, or I've heard other people refer to as like when coaches talking about stuff, and you want to say, and what exactly does that have to do with recovery? They're trying to talk about everything and everything, but which it can be hard. You don't want to say that in those words, so this will be kind of a way to introduce that thought, get them back on track to something a little more useful.
And I'm the coachee in this scenario. I'm so glad that I have this appointment with you. I've been like dreading all week. I just found out, this is informed by my real life, by the way. My younger sister, I found out she might be moving up here to Brattleboro, and I'm just like, her life is just like insane and crazy, and right now like her living situation, like I don't even know how she wound up in this situation. Like her landlord, she gave notice, even though it's like she's in this. And then the place that she was gonna go live, it fell through, and now
Okay, but let me just ask you something about that. I mean, why, you're obviously kind of upset about that. What are the reasons? Why don't you want your sister moving up here? I mean, is there something
Yeah,
what's behind that?
absolutely. It's been that distance between where in Brattleboro and where she lives, like has been living, has been really a protective buffer from this like chaos and just exhausting dramatic world that she lives in, and it feels like it's just going to be on my doorstep now, and it's really making me definitely worried about it,
So you like the distance to some degree.
Yeah, it makes sure that because my boundaries with her have not been great, so I actually have like a physical, concrete, geographic boundary to kind of give me some protection. Yeah.
So is there anything, what are you doing about that? Is there anything you can do to prevent that? Or are you just, or how are you dealing with that?
Well, I've been, one of the things I've been thinking about is just trying to figure out how to make my real boundaries. Okay, so if she is going to be geographically closer, what other protection can I give myself? And I actually got a really wonderful visualization from a clinician that I'm working with that, I might just need to put on my raincoat, and just like if she's going to be here and in my life, I might need to put my raincoat on and just let all that crap just run right off, If she is, in my life a little bit more, just not let myself get sucked into having my life force go into this situation, have her in my life, but be able to let some of it kind of run right off.
So you think that will solve most of the, like, is there other
I
things you
think
could
that's a good place to
start? Okay, yeah.
But yeah, I think I'm definitely gonna need to be able to actually stand up for myself and say what I need.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have some thoughts on how you're going to do that? Is there anything specific that
but
thinks will work?
I can definitely think of I can think of some things I can do, but I know her pretty well, and I'm worried about how ineffective I'm going to be. Yeah.
Okay. That's good.
Cool.
Thanks. So just kind of with that, I just wanted to pick something out of it and just like get something that's, as opposed to just running on a stream of this is all going on. But okay, it's upsetting you. What can you do about it? What are your thoughts and stuff? And she already had stuff. The raincoat, the things slide off. Good analogy, by the way. Yeah. All right, so we will go to.
I can't wait to see what you do for this.
Oh yeah, this is something that Ella suggested. Like when you have somebody that presents, like when you're following up on their plan, they were going to do something, and they've got, or even not even that, but just like making a plan. They have got long, elaborate, and they sound extremely well rehearsed. They've been running, either they've been using it, actually saying it, or it's been running through their head for a while.
Reasons not to do it.
Exactly, reasons that won't work, they can't do it. And you wonder, like, are they trying to convince themselves, or are they trying to convince you, the coach? So.
Cool. You want to take it away there? I'm going to be the coach in this scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I'm running. I got too many ideas from real life things. It's like, okay. So yeah, you just asked about whether I should go into treatment, to do residential, but
Yeah.
I was thinking about it. I know I said I would look into it, but I really give it a lot of thought. And there's this thing, and my girlfriend, she's kind of in a bad place right now. She's kind of then I got a job too that I'm going to be starting soon. And I do not want to miss that opportunity because it's a lot of chance for growth and the people there and a lot of money and stuff like that. And then it ties into this other thing I've got going on with this training and stuff I've been doing. So it ties in. I could miss a big opportunity if I'm in residential at this time. And then plus there's my mother. She's not getting any younger, and I want to be around for her. And if I'm in a place for like 2 weeks, I won't be able to be there for her because I'm like locked up and I don't have any freedom. So all those kind of reasons, and I think of a bunch more, are why I just can't do that.
Yeah. Well, I would want to ask you what you think maybe are some of the pros and cons. Can you think of any negatives about not going into treatment right now? Because we definitely had talked about last time some of the positives that you could get out of going into treatment. So. And I can hear, I guess that's a list of negative things in your life that you'll miss, but can you think of some real costs for yourself, for your quality of life that, I guess you already listed all of them off, but can you think of some pros then of going into treatment right now? Can you think of some reasons to do it?
I don't know.
Okay, all right. You can't think of any good. We had touched on a couple things last week. Could you maybe?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's the whole drinking thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of,
That was the reason that you were going to.
But the reason I'm drinking is because my boss is such a hard ass and I'm distressed, and then the girlfriend and my mother, so I drink because I have to, and it's not my fault. It's really their fault, for putting me under this kind of stress.
Oh, so you think if in this just imaginary in this world where all these other problems are suspended, are you pretty sure? So if that world started tomorrow, you would not pick up a drink. That's a guarantee. You would, without those circumstantial stressors.
Well, I mean, and there's the fact that I like it. Might
Gotcha.
kind of, but
Yep.
no, you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really see myself stopping on my own.
Okay.
So.
Well, that's the fact that you just said that. So say for a second that you were going to shelve the residential treatment. What supports can you give to yourself, since you just said that you wouldn't be able to stop on your own tomorrow, even if, it was all sunshine and rainbows and all this other, stuff in your life was resolved? What supports could you give to yourself while still getting to work and being there for your mother and all these other things that you've said are a priority today?
Well, I see you when I show up for appointments.
Yep.
But no, I was actually a buddy of mine. They're making them go into IOP, the Birch's program.
Yeah.
So I mean, I work afternoons and nights. So I mean, I could do that, and I'd still be here in case all the stuff's going on. That might be okay.
Yeah.
I just really don't want to be way up north, way away and locked up.
Can you think of any benefits though of that geographic distance? Of any good things that might give you? I know for myself, when that was actually something that was really helpful about residential treatment, was removing me from my environment where removing me from the life that was all about.
No, I forgot we talked about that. Yeah, no, that could be helpful, just to kind of a vacation maybe from
Can you
all the
talk
stress.
about that a little bit? Other positives you might get from that?
Yeah, I mean, I have still a phone to talk to people. It's not like they can't reach me, so.
Yep.
Yeah, and actually, I wouldn't mind getting away, from the stress and stuff.
Do you think you could talk to your boss and maybe arrange to have that training and these other opportunities, kind of put on the shelf for you when you come back?
Well, now that you mentioned, since you asked, he's already told me that I could take all the time off I want because he's concerned about me. So
that's wonderful.
Yeah. All right. Great.
Cool.
Thank you.
Sorry, guys.
I think you're hopeless, Brian.
Yeah, I am, yeah. And I keep on trying to make her understand that, but she keeps on, what the hell?
What the hell?
Yeah. So that was that. So that's an example, and sometimes those things can be things you can kind of plan out if it's like recurring stuff, like the person that says, I don't know, or has a million, reasons why they can't do something. Yeah, just kind of just be aware of those are because you're going to hear it again and, well, I think I'm going to do this, I mean, it's great to be able to come up with these things on the spot, but sometimes that's not necessarily so easy. So, to boundaries with an exclamation point. This is like a huge thing, especially for any coaches, but the new coaches and stuff. It's like you want to help somebody out, but there's a very real thing of going too far with it. You got to have what you'll do and what you can't do, and just always being aware of it. The simplest thing to say is it's far easier to put up boundaries early on than try to put them up later on after they've gone miles past it. You just create hurt feelings, anger, and something that may cause a disconnect with the person you're coaching, or maybe they won't stop seeing you because they think you're a big jerk now because you used to give me rides to the doctor's office, but you don't anymore. And you shouldn't have been doing that to begin with. So much easier to put them right up. And one of the other things too with putting up boundaries is to be really clear on them. And like in your initial coaching session, that'd be something like what a coach does and what it doesn't do. Make it clear then, and you can always, once you've told somebody something, even if they don't recall that necessarily, you can say, well, when I talked to you on your first day, we went over this, and I can't loan you money, I can't do this kind of stuff. Once it's up there, you're just kind of and holding it firm. Then it's not hard feelings. But if you do something for somebody, or even else, if you do something for another person you're coaching, but you say no to them, then it's like, well, why do you like them more than me? And it just some places you don't want to go, and some things like, don't, and maybe it's different in some centers or whatever, but this is here and my thoughts on it. Don't drive people around, things like that. Just say you can't, don't loan them or give money, cigarettes, etc. There shouldn't be any kind of exchange of anything, even if it's not meant to, you're just doing it out of the kindness of your heart. You can't be someone's coach and a sponsor. Doesn't mean you can't be a sponsor, but you can't sponsor and coach that same person because that's just confusing, and you're kind of two different paths there to some degree. You can't be their friend and you can't date them. Should be obvious, but it's there, and even if it's something like a person comes in that you were friends with or already are friends, they come in to be coached or whatever, you'd want to let your supervisor know that, and to maybe say, well, maybe I shouldn't be coaching this person because I know too much about them and I can't have boundaries, and there's a lot of other reasons, that's the extra knowledge and stuff too can be detrimental. So yeah, let it know, and then you can talk about it. Sometimes it's probably not a problem, but it's something worth talking about. This is big, and you can do what you want, but I'd say don't ever give out your personal phone number. Once you give it out, you can't take it back. And this person, especially if you give it out early when you're coaching somebody, you don't really know, who they are, what they might do or whatever, and some people can seem extremely nice at the beginning, but you put them under some pressure and something's going on in their life, and they may either could potentially do something bad to you, or just be a real problem, or just like kind of just be overwhelming and stuff. So have that kind of control. Keep yourself distant enough so you're not available like that, which makes it very hard, to just use the center phone to make appointments and stuff. Maybe depending on your situation, you can. But there is one way I'm going to go over in a minute is Google Voice has a program, free thing like all their stuff is, that you can set up a separate phone number, use your cell phone or your home phone, that you're not giving out your own personal phone number, and you can turn that one off if there's problems or something like that, But yeah, you want to avoid that because you just never know. Maybe down the road you feel comfortable with somebody, you trust them, and you know they're not going to stalk you or something, then you might do it, but it's really not at first. Also, should be common sense, but you should only meet the person you're coaching at the center. I guess there can be exceptions to this, but that'd be something that you talk over with your supervisor and get approval for, because, and you certainly absolutely never meet somebody at your own residence or their residence for a bunch of different reasons, got all kinds of, that could lead to accusations or something, or just clearly unsafe things. You get to someone's house and, who knows what may be going on there, and just to keep everything clear and above boards and no question about stuff, it should be at the center. If there's an exception to that, it should be maybe at a treatment center or something, that'd be approved by your supervisor, say, okay, that's all right. But it should, other than that, it should be at the center, and then that should be not clear cut. I would avoid even like a place like a coffee shop, which would seem a lot safer and stuff, but then you're kind of opening the door to other places, and then, one thing leads to another. So that would be my suggestion for that. Just to be safe, and avoid any possibility of that. Boundaries. Just like Nancy Reagan once said, just say no. Hannah Rose in one of her trainings said multiple times that no is a complete sentence. Just say it. Say it nicely, firmly, and don't make any exceptions. Don't say yes to one person and say no to another, because people talk and people always notice. They're gonna, even if they don't say it, they're gonna think, well, why did you do that for her but not for me? And you don't want that kind of barrier or thing taken away from your coaching. And this has always worked well for me. If it helps, blame your director, the network, Bill White, whoever. And that usually, yeah. And that can work because presumably the person you're coaching cares about you too. They may not see things from your perspective and stuff, but in the past when I blamed something on a boss or whatever, or just saying like, that's company policy, it's not my decision. It's that's the way it is. I'll get. And if you throw in like, well, I'll get in trouble if I give you a cigarette or something. It worked for me like 4 years ago. And I loaned somebody money or when, and Susie said, well, you really shouldn't do that. And so I just blamed it on her. In fact, I've been blaming pretty much everything on her all along. She didn't know that until right now. But it's like because Susie's going to yell at me. I'm going to get in trouble. So. But no, things like that can make it easier. And then they'll say, well, I don't want you to get in trouble, and otherwise they could keep on pressuring you. So whatever works with that person, and it's somewhat true. And the more you stick to the boundaries, the easier it gets to put them up and keep them up. It can be really uncomfortable at first to just say no, like, well, I'd like to give you a ride there, but, and then, that can lead to it being an everyday kind of thing. And, the nicer you are, the more you end up doing, and you're kind of, and one of the goes back to that you shouldn't be working on their recovery more than they're working on it. They can find their own rides, they can do stuff, and you can talk to them about it. And, what are your thoughts on that? What's the options? Does the town bus, or whatever, help them solve the problem, but don't be the solution to their problem. It just gets easier. It's some people. I had a really hard time saying no to people. Just like, well, I feel bad, and why can't I? But it just leads to things, but the more you say it, the easier it is. And then you sound more confident saying it, and then often people won't question it. If you sound like kind of, well, no, then they're probably going to push, because they want that. So it just gets easier, just do it. Google Voice, there is a printout in your stuff, but basically what it is, and apparently it's not very popular because in the instructions, I ran through them. I had been handing this out for a while, but like you go to like the Google site, basically you need to have a Google account already, which is just Gmail, and if you don't have it, you can just get one. Everything's free, and you don't have to use the email account, but just got to have something with them. And then you go to like other services, and then you scroll down through 100 different ones, and Google Voice is like at the bottom. It's like you have to hit more, and then additional, go to another site. But it's there. So I'm assuming not many people use it because it'd be up top. But yeah, it gives you an additional free phone number, and you just link it to. You can do it with your home phone, but I think it's probably especially useful with a cell phone. If you have a cell phone and a number, you can get that, and it'll ring through that same phone. You can turn it on or off, and that way you're not giving out your own personal phone number to somebody. And you can when the phone rings, you can just look at it and or you just turn it off. You have hours. You tell the person you're working with. That's another thing too that you'd want to consider is as a coach, what is your availability? And there again, one of the differences for me that not being a sponsor or sponsors typically, it varies, but available 24/7. A coach, no, we're not. That's not what we do. And so you wouldn't want somebody calling, and for that you can have business hours or something like that, or just they can leave a text, they can leave a voicemail, and it even converts the voicemail to text so you can read it while you're driving, or something, and it actually works,
It does. Yeah. You get the voicemail shows up in your email in your inbox.
Yep.
And it's right, all transcribed.
Yep.
It's really
The whole thing's extremely simple.
Yeah.
It took me like 5 minutes to set it up. I've used it.
Pocket dial. Sorry.
Oh, does it?
You have to choose. You have to choose when you make a phone call. It says, are you making this phone call from your device number or from your Google Voice number? Or are you canceling the phone call? I have saved myself from so many pocket dials.
See? There you go. I did not know that. But yeah, it's really simple. All the information's on there, and I encourage you to do it if you want to do that. It's really amazing. It's been around for years too, which I didn't know, but because no one ever mentioned it until several months ago. But yeah, then you got something, and then you can turn that off a lot easier than your own number if there's a problem, with somebody down the road. You have your own work phone that way, without someone buying you one. Stigma is an important thing. Another quote from Dr. Kane at the retreat: "To change, people must accept themselves as they are, which is hard if you're surrounded by people passing judgment on you." You listen to people, even if you think you're not listening to them or believing them, it wears down on a person. It's affecting you. The same is true of like our own inner conversations. If we're telling ourselves we're stupid, we're useless, and I screwed up again, with no positives to balance it, then you believe it. Someone told me that once, and it's like it doesn't work that way. I'm just saying it. I don't really mean it, but it affects a person. And there's so much stigma out there when it comes to addiction, recovery, treatment, especially. People that utilize medication-assisted treatment, methadone, Suboxone, naltrexone. A lot of people have these beliefs and stuff, which are usually unfounded by any fact or whatever, but they do it, and people are past judgment all the time. People like passing judgment. And also the things like an incredible thing is to be like the power of being open and honest with people. Like with recovery in general. I don't know if you guys have seen the Anonymous People movie. Incredible, inspiring movie. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. But I've watched it multiple times, and I still feel all motivated and inspired at the end of it. And that's basically about people just being out and open, in the public, especially, like talking to people. It's understanding when a person, because of job or things like that, maybe don't want to be the spokesperson for recovery in their community, but if you can be, it's going to change how people look at it. You're going to see someone talking like, well, this guy seems okay. He seems to have his act together. He's got a job, and stuff like that. And you're telling your story and stuff. People see it differently. It makes a huge difference in what people see and stuff. Because if they don't see or hear from people in recovery, they're going to whatever their stereotype is, and they don't know what's going along in a church basement or whatever. They don't see the progress and stuff because of, anonymity and stuff. But, if you can and you're interested, speak up and just be out there. And not even necessarily in a public eye, but just like with people and stuff. I was the most dishonest person I could imagine for a long time. And when I started being honest to people in early recovery, it was just totally freeing. I was actually stressing myself over the lies I was telling. Will I remember who I told what and everything else? It was just like amazing freeing. So, we can work with somebody to kind of help them see, that part of it, not to make them be honest, but then by doing that as well, them being honest with you as a coach, it's going to help the situation, because if we only have half the story or even less, we don't know. We don't know what's going on with them, so for them to be able to help. So, and to reduce stigma generally, just put a face on recovery if you can. I know here in town we do a lot of public stuff, public speaking. I do a lot of public speaking and stuff, and I love doing it. I'm socially phobic and stuff, but it's just seeing people is hugely powerful. Put a face on it. Be brave. Be yourself. And that's the thing too. It's like, if you're talking about your recovery, your substance use or whatever, you're being honest. It's being brave to talk about that stuff, and people sense that. They see it. Be yourself. Be authentic. Be an example for others. As a coach, you need to be a role model to a certain degree. You need to show them positive attributes and things like that. So be an example. And if we don't do this kind of stuff, people's thoughts, their stereotypes, their stigma, it's not going to change. But there's been a huge movement like the last 10 or more years that people are starting to understand. Not everybody, and there won't never be everybody, but which leads us to, in big bold, language matters. Some people poo-poo this, the value of it and stuff, but I really believe this stuff affects people. The words we use, whether it be contributing to the stereotype of somebody with addiction or just whatever. And then the people that hear these terms and stuff, things like And things like calling somebody an addict, which usually people aren't saying that as a slight or something. It's just like they think it's matter of fact, addict, But I think anytime you describe somebody as a noun, or as a condition, they're a person first, and kind of like with the anonymous people, they were talking about like the language and stuff, public, say, I'm Brian, I'm a person in long-term recovery, from alcohol use disorder, and it's been 5 years since I've had my last drink or something like that, shows it in a better light, instead of saying alcoholic, 5 years, it resonates with people much better, and it'll make you feel better about yourself too. Some people, using a term like addict or even alcoholic, because I was thinking that, addict was bad, but alcoholic was okay. But it's exactly the same thing, So if you can change it, and maybe in a meeting room or whatever, it may not matter. I think it still does, but that's one thing. But if you use the words all the time, when you're in a public setting or something, and you describe, hey, I'm an addict, all the connotations that go with that is what occurs to people. But if you reframe it, and you're still being absolutely honest.
Diagnosis? Reframe it as a diagnosis?
It's a condition. It's the same thing. If you say, I'm an alcoholic, I have alcohol use disorder. Same. So you're being completely honest. You're just saying it in a way that all the stigma of stuff they've already perceived that what an addict is not directly conveyed. Then people don't, and there's probably a bunch of people now looking, but hey, it's what I think, and it's, and what I can say is a definite, as opposed to my personal opinion, that it makes a big difference, I mean, it's just one step further, probably everyone would agree that saying junkie, someone's a junkie is a bad thing to say, and is addict, how much farther removed is that, I don't know. I mean, it depends on who's listening to it, and that's the thing too. We don't know what the people's perceptions are. In this room, you could say addict, and people have a, not a big negative image of that. But if you say it to someone else, their mind may go somebody's completely different than people talking about recovery in a situation like this. But then again, we're not mind readers and stuff. But yeah, I just encourage everyone to realize that some of the words we use can have a bigger impact on people. Think about your words. Think before you speak, especially if it's words you use reflexively because you do it all the time in a meeting or something. And it will change the way people think about you. I want to go forward one. One thing I definitely wanted to mention is about using the right language. Is if, as a coach or any kind of peer worker, and hopefully you make connections with the treatment world, the professional world. The treatment world is very adamant about this now, and more all the time. Like in a team meeting at work, a couple months ago, I said, talking about a patient, I said, well, his UAs have been clean for the last 2 months, and the doctor goes, by clean, Brian, did you mean they've been negative for other substances? And I go, yeah, they've been negative for, and he was absolutely right, because the opposite of clean is dirty, and that's, yeah, a person may have used a substance, but are they dirty? There's associations with all these words that we don't really need. But, and that's kind of like, and that's what you hear too. It's like my patients are always saying, was I clean? I was dirty last week and stuff, and I don't feel compelled to change. I don't want to spend the whole time talking like I'm talking right now and stuff with them. But the point there is that the treatment professionals are very much for this. This is from an email that Ella received. She's speaking this afternoon at a Blueprint for Health meeting. And this was from the person arranging it. And she said that she also requests that you abstain from terms clean and sober or referring to people as addicts or alcoholics. I'm not assuming you're going to, but I'm aware these are used. One of the presentations on Stigma, which we're talking about in the words we use, participants are new to treating people with substance use disorders, so we really want to impart on them the ideas of using non-judgmental, stigma-free language. We are hoping to teach people to get away from terms like clean or dirty, or being identified as their addiction. Because even if you use a term like addict, you want to be a person who's an addict. Not a addict. Because that's like all defining. You're just that. Your condition, your diagnosis, or whatever you want to call it. So I mean, and that's what they're saying. So I would encourage you to think about those terms when you're working out in the public or whatever. You want to make connections with treatment providers. You want referrals from them. You want them to say, hey, Turning Point's a great place to go, and they've got coaching and stuff. But if you walk in, and start using, like, oh, I'm here to help addicts, that's what I do, addicts, there's a very good chance that person's not going to listen to you, and they're not going to help you out. They're not going to help their people find you to work with you. I know the doctor at my clinic, if you go in and say a couple things like that, he would just, he may let you sit there and talk for another 10 minutes, but he's never going to suggest anything to you. And that, I think, it's not necessarily everybody, but it's pretty significant when, they send out an email to someone presenting, please don't use these terms, because we're getting away from that. So, use other places, okay, but know that this is going to turn some people off, and that's going to turn somebody off from maybe coming to a turning point, recovery, or whatever, if they feel offended. And how many people are going to tell you that what you said or the terms you used offended you or made you feel less than? Some people will, but most people are just going to register it and like, well, I don't want to talk to that person again. Missed one. Why language can stigmatize, increase, or perpetuate negative perceptions, but the right language can also change a negative stereotype. If you frame it totally honest, as if I'm a person in recovery and I'm doing this and stuff, you can reframe it. People think differently about somebody with addiction. And yeah, alienating people, lose respect and trust. And just because everyone seems to be using these words, doesn't mean that it's not having an impact on people, Ways to change how we speak. Identify somebody as a person first, not as their condition. Instead of being an addict or an alcoholic, say a person with addiction to, or you don't need to necessarily go to a diagnosis like alcohol use disorder or something, but then why not? Because it's the same thing, alcohol use disorder. Or even better, say a person with this, opioid use disorder, bipolar, it's another one too. Mental health conditions are often fall into the same thing. He's bipolar, or schizo, and stuff. And that just hurts people, And you may not mean anything by it, and maybe some people around you don't take anything by it, but there's probably somebody or someone that has a condition like that or knows somebody, and they're thinking, what an asshole, So I just want to throw that out there. They're a person, not a diagnosis. Some may regard this unnecessary or sugarcoating things, but you're being honest, you're just, not using a word that's going to make them go someplace we don't want them to.
Brian, another question.
Yeah.
What is your attitude about, and I'll back up and use myself as an example. I used to have a sponsor who made it a big deal to tell me how much term sobriety he had. I have 32 years of sobriety.
Yeah.
I'm like, good for you. What does that do for me? I felt it was kind of dragging, so I kind of stay away from saying how long I've been told.
Yeah, that's entirely personal, I know people like that, and I wonder what's their reason for having to point it out on a daily or weekly basis, It's like, are you trying to convince me of something, or are you convincing yourself, But, I'm not going to tell somebody not to do it, but I wouldn't do it. I can't even tell you what my sober date is. I know what month it was towards the end of the month, but that's I know where I'm at, what day it is or what month it is, but it's really common too, and it's something that people, you pick that kind of up, in 12-step, 'cause some people do that, so you might think that's just what you do, and I think it's definitely important to value your recovery and your time in it, because that does mean something, so depends on the person. I don't know. Yeah.
I do it not so much with people who are in recovery, but with people who need to be educated.
Yeah.
Because most of them think most of us have 5 years or less.
Yeah.
The fact that there's somebody that has 20 or 30 years doesn't even occur to them that that's possible.
Exactly. Yeah.
It is a point of education.
It is, yeah, absolutely, and that goes back to when I was talking about the anonymous people and a movement. They were trainings a couple years ago or so. The power of speech, that's not the name of it, but talking about how to present that, and like they would suggest saying that hi, I'm Brian, I'm a person in long-term recovery, and name it, and it's been 5 years or whatever, since my last drink. So I mean, that definitely frames it. You're a person first. I'm Brian. I'm a person who happens to, and it's been, my recovery has brought me this. So definitely in the right environment, you probably want to introduce yourself on someone on the street. Hi, I'm Brian, and it's like, what? Okay, I didn't need all that. But no, in the right environment, that's important because it frames it. Yeah, it sees, oh yeah, recovery is possible. I didn't think it was. I never knew someone that had more than 5 years. So absolutely, yeah. I think Andy was kind of just where a person mentions it to you, like every day, and stuff like that,
Today's stupid.
Yeah.
My feelings were all the same, it doesn't matter whether you're 32 years or 32 hours.
Oh, my favorite.
So there's a couple of awesome videos I'm going to subject you to. Well, actually, you get to not listen to me for a few minutes. These are both incredible ones. I was trying to decide between, they're both on empathy. I was trying to decide which one, but I decided both. Let's see how this works.
So what is empathy?
Yep.
And why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, I'm down. I know what it's like down here. And you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no. You want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
Oh, isn't that the best?
Yeah, that's amazing, and there's one thing I thought when I saw it the first time was like how many people I do look on the bright side with, because I want to help them. It's kind of, you want to make the person feel better. So, well, at least, but it's like that's not helping somebody, So I mean, in 2.5 minutes, a really great explanation. And as a coach or anyone working in peers or just in life, having empathy for the other person, putting yourself in their shoes, understanding and what better a person to understand somebody who's in recovery than someone else in recovery who's coaching them, because our experiences may not be exactly the same, but kind of there's enough light that you can really empathize, you can really understand that person. And that's a big reason why somebody would choose a coach as opposed to possibly a counselor or something else, because of that factor.
I actually have oftentimes, wondered when someone is talking about something challenging for them about any one of those things. I've often felt like this, like I'm watching myself, like you're a bad coach if all you're doing is empathizing and not helping them problem solve through. But oftentimes, I don't even know what to say.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You know, and
Does coaching make it your prerogative, though, to do the, I mean, how do you
No.
meld those two things together, you know?
I mean, the best thing we can do, you know, even if we don't know what to say or the questions to ask, is just listen to somebody. And you know, like with motivational interviewing, you know, reflective listening and stuff, you know, show that person through your body language or whatever, or saying like, you know, reflect back on what they said, so they know you were listening. You weren't just like nodding your head once in a while at appropriate times, you know, so they know that. And that's, you know, if that's the least we can do, that's pretty amazing.
You know, we say sometimes we can just listen just as if we're minimizing it somehow, but for a person to be heard
Yeah.
is such a gift. And sometimes that isn't just enough, that's
Everything.
the world.
Yeah,
in that
absolutely. Yeah, there was something I actually meant to put the quote in here, but it's a quote on my refrigerator. It's something about one of the biggest human traits is the desire to be heard and understood, you know, and the best way to do that is to be a good listener, you know, instead of like, you know, interjecting, well, at least, or, you know, and well, what are you going to do about it? Oh, I got a solution for you, or try to fix it for them, you know. It's like, you know what you should do? You should do this, you know.
Ask them what they need.
Yeah, after the, you know, after they've expressed it.
I've done that and had somebody say,
Exactly.
I need a hug.
Yeah. Awesome point. Yeah, because like, that person may need, you know, we may think they need, you know, a therapist or something, but maybe they just, or they, no, I'm glad you listened, or yeah, exactly. You know, ask the person, yeah, what can I do? You know, instead of making suggestions or something.
I had somebody share with me once, which was really eye-opening for me, is I always found myself like, oh, you're going to be sober and things are going to get better. Everything's going to get better now that you're sober, but it's really focusing on change. Things are going to change.
Yeah.
So, you know, and there's always good change, but
Yeah.
it's kind of, again, meeting people where they're at. We're
Yeah.
all excited and we know things are going to get better because we've gotten better.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's hard to hear that when you're new in recovery.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe it.
Absolutely, yeah. You know, and it was kind of mentioned before, and I think back to like the first counselor I had and my first bout of treatment, and she had this thing. It wasn't original to her, but it said like sober is not a word; it's an acronym that means son of a bitch. Everything's real. You know, a person stops using, which, you know, whether that was their intention or not, to kind of drown everything else out, take everything away, at least temporarily. So you're not solving problems, you're not making anything better, you're probably making it a lot worse at the time. And then all of a sudden, you've got a clear head more or less, and, you know, and all of a sudden, all these problems seem especially real, and you get people wanting your rent check and all this other kind of stuff, and you got this stuff to deal with. And I mean, okay, you're doing making these big changes, but yeah, all of a sudden you got all this shit to deal with, you know. And so yeah, helping a person figure that out and be supportive is huge, because absolutely, it's like no wonder people, you know, don't stay, you know, abstinent, or they, you know, relapse and stuff.
One of the things that Miller emphasizes over and over again in his book on motivational interviewing is that we proceed from the knowledge that the person has the answers to their own questions, and our role is to help them get them out.
Right.
And so if somebody is experiencing tragedy or a real, you know, serious emotional crisis, then if we go in knowing that we can't solve the problem for them, so what can we do?
Right, exactly.
We can be there with them.
Yep.
And that one piece of ground where they happen to be at that time.
Yep, absolutely. That's beautiful too. Yeah, I mean, like as a coach, you know, one of the things I was taught or have seen is like, you know, we can't cure or fix anybody, you know, but we can be there for them and help them find their own. There's no cure, but, you know what I'm saying, find their own solutions to things, you know, that, yeah, the thought is, MI is like that the person has the answer somewhere. They just need to help finding it, you know. And just like even listening to somebody, you know, I can't tell you how many times that I've talked to a friend or somebody about a problem I've got going on, and, you know, and I'm approaching it like, well, I want your advice on something. And as I'm explaining the situation to them, I figure it out for myself. And I'm like, oh, well, I don't need your advice now, thanks, I figured it out. But it was the act, and that's why groups and talking and coaching is amazing, because by processing what's going on and stuff, you know, instead of like all this lumps of emotions, you're going through it with the details so this other person can understand it, and all of a sudden you understand it better. It's like when they say with teaching and stuff that, you know, and then I used to do training on systems and stuff in my previous career, and the times I really began understanding the stuff I was teaching was while I was teaching it, because I had to reflect it, explain it back to another person in words, and all of a sudden I understood it a lot better than I did, so it's great
I don't know,
stuff.
I guess it kind of goes back, and it's one of the greatest gifts to see happen. I think we all have the pieces to the puzzle.
Yeah.
And as a coach, all we're doing is helping them put the pieces of the puzzle together.
Right.
And it's amazing to see it when they see the picture.
Yep.
It's like the aha moment.
Yeah.
It's like, oh,
Yeah.
done.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's when hope comes up, and then motivation follows. It's like, well, okay, I can see it. I can see an answer. This isn't hopeless. If I do this, and then this next thing, it'll probably turn around, and
And that's all we really do is help
Right.
them put the pieces together.
Absolutely.
So they can see the picture.
Yep.
And another thing too is that people come to us at that point, they have been told what's wrong with them, and they've been told what to do by everybody else they've seen.
Yep.
And so by how we interact with them, we're trying to get them to sort of take agency, to sort of take, to assert themselves with their own lives, and to find their own answers, and to not be told what's wrong, but to think about what's right.
One thing I found pretty useful when I'm coaching is when somebody's sharing something that I have no experience with, like military experience or something. Instead of saying, "Oh, I know how that feels," I say, "I really don't know how that feels. I know it must be difficult," and that seems to give them an opening to tell me, more about how it feels for them.
Yep. Yep. All extremely valuable stuff. This is the second.
I just want to say this is on our website.
I was going to say that too. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Our new website. Good
So.
one.
It's only 3 minutes long.
Of empathy. We all live in our own version of reality. A reality that is limited by our senses, our temperament, and our own experiences. It is the only reality we will ever truly know. But it is crucial to our personal development, our relationships, and to society itself that we make the effort to try and experience other people's realities as well. This is done through empathy. Simply stated, empathy is an active attempt to understand another person's perspective, their emotions, and in essence, their reality. We are social animals, and our ability to communicate and understand each other's emotional states is key to maintaining our relationships. So it is little wonder that the ability to empathize is hardwired directly into our brains. One area that assists in this process is the right supramarginal gyrus, which helps us to distinguish our own emotional state from that of another person, and plays a key role in our ability to observe and assess what other people are experiencing. Studies from Neuron Science Journal suggest that we have systems of mirror neurons in our brains that cause us to mimic the actions of others. That is why when we see someone yawn, we will often yawn in reply. And when we observe someone experiencing joy or pain, we experience the same sensation to a certain extent. But these reactions are primarily driven by subconscious reflexes. In order to be truly empathic, you have to actively think beyond yourself and your own concerns. You can develop this empathic skill by practicing some simple habits. Be observant of others. We tend to spend the majority of our day dwelling on ourselves, caught up in our own daily routines and digital distractions. But taking the time to observe others around you is a good first step in developing your empathy. Watch and wonder. Try to focus on the person's state of being rather than categorizing or labeling them. Ask yourself, what kind of day are they having? How are they feeling? Challenge yourself to genuinely care about their well-being. Curiosity about others is the first step to expanding your empathy. Use active listening. During a conversation, especially a heated one, most people formulate their response before the other person even finishes their statement. This form of communication is more verbal combat than an exchange of ideas or opinions. Avoid this reflex by slowing down. Rather than rushing to reply, take a moment to consider the other person's statement. Ask follow-up questions to better understand what the speaker intended. Try to understand their emotional state and the deeper motivations behind their statement. What life experiences led them to their current worldview? Remember, you don't need to share someone's opinion in order to understand it and acknowledge it. And listening will help inform and expand your own opinion. Open up. Learning more about other people's experiences is a key element to seeing the world through someone else's eyes. But it is also important to open up about your own feelings and experiences. Empathy is a two-way street that at last is built upon mutual understanding. Through a combination of uncovering the deeper motivations of someone else's position and expressing our own underlying concerns, we often discover a shared commonality, even with those who hold different beliefs than ours. Through the practice of keeping an open mind, empathy helps us challenge prejudice, find commonality, and expand our moral universe. Without it, we are apt to label people outside our circle as the other, the problem, or the enemy. These labels draw lines in the sand that prevent us from moving forward or growing. It cuts us off from the realization that the human experience is a shared experience. We have much more in common than we think, and are really just seeing small variations of the same reality.
One thing, I was taking a course last semester and it was on human growth and development, and like a lot of it was like how our brains evolved and stuff like that, and things like empathy and stuff. Our brains evolved that way because as human beings, we need other human beings to survive, and that enabled us to make connections with other people, to understand, what they're feeling, what's going on. Because without that, we'd be all living in our own cave, and then, when we needed help or couldn't gather enough food or whatever, we'd be out of luck. So, and that's like the mirror neurons too. It's like, let's see if I can change this now. There we go. That's how like babies learn to smile. They're not born knowing how to smile, but they see other people smiling at them, and then they reflect it back. So it's amazing how this stuff works, and it keeps us alive, and that's why we're still around today. Just want to spend a little time, which we don't have much time left, so we're going to have to go through some parts pretty quickly on cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. I won't go into the details of that, what the thing is, but it's about changing behaviors and beliefs. And as a coach, this can be really useful stuff to know. Not like in-depth treatment plans or anything like that, but just knowing that, if a person has a behavior that's adversely affecting them, there are ways to change it. The big thing I wanted to think, this has helped me a lot working with people, and it's pretty simple. It's part of CBT, but it's called cognitive distortions. Also, it's referred to as like problematic thinking, and there's some different terms for it. But it's basically when a person thinks they're thinking of something's not correct. It's not reflecting the actual facts of a situation, or they're making up facts.
Or is it reality?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, and these things are usually, at least the way I'm going to talk about them, are, for the negative. They just bring people down, and you just don't see things, but they really only serve us to make us feel bad. Just a few examples, and if you're coaching somebody that talks like this and stuff, it's good to help recognize them. In your stuff, there's a handout with a few different ones, but you probably recognize this in a bunch of people, whether they're coaching or not. But personalizing is when you see yourself or another as completely to blame. You can always blame someone else too. It's like everything's their fault, or I'm just so bad. Every bad thing that's happened to me is my own fault, which no one's completely to blame for anything. A strategy to help them with motivational interviewing is like, well, is there other things to blame? Look for other causes. Like, could that be possibly true that everything is your fault? Emotional reasoning is one that you believe that your emotions are true. It's fact. You feel this way about someone or something, and that's fact. It's based on facts. It's just the way it is. But if you're not looking at any realistic stuff, is it really? I feel sad. Things must be hopeless. Emotions change over time, and feelings are not facts. They're not proof of anything. It's how you look at something. They're perception. Mind reading is one. I'm guilty of all these too. And one of the things I tell people is that now that I know about this stuff, I can't even feel good about feeling sorry for myself at times. Like how I'm thinking I am hopeless and stuff, because then I think, no, Brian, you're personalizing, and I can't even enjoy wallowing in anger or grief sometimes because I got the other side of me saying no, you're wrong. So it's a mixed blessing, I guess. But for other people, mind reading, what somebody else feels about you, and then they dwell on it. And I knew one person, and like she said something stupid in class one time, and she was still ruminating on it like a couple years later, and everyone was laughing. Everyone thought I was stupid. And I was like, how could everyone think that? How do you know that? And it's like, I know, I was there, you weren't there. And it's like, she was like battling with other false things. It's like she just knew, Okay, mind reading. If someone, we can often do this stuff like, if somebody we think they're giving us a dirty look or something like that, oh, they must be mad at me. What are they mad at me for? And I'm going to be mad at them first, but maybe they were just looking at the clock behind your head or something, or thinking about something else. People in general aren't, unfortunately or fortunately, that interested in other people. They're thinking about themselves most of the time, or what they got to do. They need to stop and get milk on the way home. They're not thinking about how stupid you are. Another big one is fallacy of fairness. If you expect everything to work out, I've worked hard, I've done this, I deserve this, I should have all the blessings and stuff. Because or it's just not fair. I can't tell you how many people are like, it's not fair that this happened. It's like, well, let's look at the reasons why this happened. And maybe it's not right. But I mean, there's things behind that. And just because you're an awesome person and you do everything right, doesn't mean that you're going to wake up with riches and pass into heaven or something. So the strategy is just like question your expectations. Are your expectations too high? Think about, there is no system of fairness. There's morality, but bad stuff happens to good people. Good stuff happens to bad people. Co-occurring conditions as a coach. This comes up sometimes, about like what our role is if we're coaching somebody with mental health concerns or something, and who knows? It's kind of like, as far as I'm concerned, we want to support that person. We should at least understand that at least 75% of people with substance abuse have a co-occurring mental health condition, or it could be even a co-occurring can mean like it could be a physical situation and stuff too. That anything that kind of complicates a person's addiction. And I think as a coach, just be aware of these things and stuff. And we can't, maybe if the person's through motivation, anything, ask them, if they just listen and reflect back so they feel heard. And if they want, or maybe say, are you interested in maybe looking for some professional help, depending, and we can help them find that, But we're not experts on anything. I wouldn't say we're experts on recovery. We're maybe expert on our own personal recovery, but we don't treat or cure people. But we can listen, be empathetic, and help somebody find the help they do need. Trauma is another thing too that can be a really tricky thing, and probably everyone's got a different idea about that. What I have done is because trauma being so tricky to deal with, and I don't really know hardly anything about it. So if whether I'm doing a group or coaching somebody, it's actually never really come up in coaching, but like in group facilitation, someone, because I don't know how to help that person, I think it's better to not let them open up and share all the stuff. It's important. Yes, we want to hear people, and it's important to be heard and understood, but you can be opening up the proverbial kettle of worms, especially if you're just coaching that person for an hour, you're facilitating the group, and this person opens up and you think, great, they're talking, finally, and then they're just a wreck afterwards, and we say, all right, thanks, see you next week, that's not a good thing. So I exercise caution when that comes stuff, and try to defer, saying, hey, just explain, I really want to help, and you obviously got some really concerns and stuff, and I want to hear and stuff, but I just want to make sure that I'm able to support you in the way I need to, and sometimes that can be not letting them go to a very dark place that you're going to send them home, and then it's a very specific field, and you need to really be an expert to really help somebody, to know what to do and when, What's that?
Stay in your lane.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Absolutely, with something like that, it's just too much at stake. But let them know that you care and you want to help them.
One thing that I notice as a challenge is dealing with people that are identifying themselves as a victim or as identity, it's because of this or because I'm this that this happened.
Right.
Or the system is against me. And you don't want to agree with them, but you want to empathize, but
Yeah.
So that's.
Yeah. Well, you can empathize without agreeing with somebody.
Right.
You're understanding why they would feel that way, possibly. But not validating it. How you phrase it and stuff, I guess, is important. You don't want to convince them they're right of that. In a case where somebody's blaming, that's like personalization. It's like, and then you can ask them questions like, well, is that really the fact? What are the facts leading to you thinking this is the case? And then they might come up with, well, I guess that's not really that, and talk themselves out of that. There's a handout on this too. It's some people are aware of it, a lot of people are not. It's not completely accepted by the professional community, mostly because it's the lack of study on it. It'd be a really expensive study to do, and they're kind of like, what's happening. But post-acute withdrawal syndrome, PAUSE is how it's usually termed. It's like, I'll just speak my own story here, you know. After my like third relapse in a year, I was in treatment, and the counselor doing a group just kind of mentioned this in passing, and it sounded, they kind of struck a chord. I'm like, what was that? You know, I went to ask her later, and she's like, oh yeah. You know, so I went home, looked it up online, and I was like, oh my God, this is what's been happening to me. You know, it's kind of ups and downs that happen, and the timing varies and stuff for people, but pretty much everyone to a certain degree encounters this stuff where you'll be feeling like really, really good for a while, and then feeling anxious or depressed and stuff, you know, and it's like, you know, I know what I was thinking. It's like, well, if this is life, you know, without alcohol, this sucks. So what's the point, you know? But not knowing that it would get better, I just think, well, this is a downhill trajectory, you know, and it usually grows. But the handout has a lot more in it, but, you know, 3 to 6 months, and then it can go on for, you know, 6 months, 12 months. Benzodiazepines, especially, it's a recovery from benzos is horrible. You know, it's really, you know, that takes a couple of years, you know, and that's like the you know, people talk about their substance being the worst thing to withdraw from. Benzos has it down cold, you know, it lasts so long, but everything's bad, but this happens with all of them, and it's like kind of, it's brain damage, but it can heal itself, you know, over time, and with, you know, continued abstinence, and it usually runs in a cycle, like 30 days, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, and stuff. And I think this could be a reason you see a lot of people that could be a part of the reason why people tend to relapse, like on anniversaries. Well, hey, I've been sober 6 months, and they're using that night or something, you know. But it's something to be aware of, and, you know, when you're working with somebody, that be kind of aware for these things. You know, there's not really much you can do except for healthy living, and, you know, you'll recover from it. As a coach, it's important to be a resource navigator in your center. Basically, just like find out what resources in the community. Hopefully, your center's got a lot of stuff already, but find out what those are, and find your own. You know, the biggest thing I can recommend with this is to explore and learn. You know, utilize other people. You know, don't be afraid to ask questions of other people with more experience and things like that. Hey, do you know about this? And you might. Some centers have, you know, like kind of, I'll say, resident experts. You know, there was a person here when I was doing most of the coaching that really knew about housing, you know, and I knew very little about it. So I'd say, hey, you know, what do you know? And oh yeah, call this person and stuff. You know, utilize others' experience and their knowledge to benefit the person you're coaching. Reach out to other ones, you know. And I also encourage people to make as many friends as possible. You know, it's easy to be shy and stuff. I certainly was, but, you know, if you just like greet people all the time, say hi, shake their hand, introduce, hey, I do this and stuff, you might have a connection. So a person you're coaching down the road, or then you might be able to say, hey, you know, I'm helping a person and they're wondering about this, and you've got a connection. And you make a good impression on those people, and they might refer people here. Hey, you should go to Turning Point and get a coach. 211, I think, is often overlooked. You know, you call them, and, you know, you just tell them what you need. You don't even know you don't have to know what you need. You know, like, I'm looking for a therapist. You can say, well, I've got this thing, and they go, oh, you probably need, or you want to look into this. And obviously, computers and cell phones. You know, it's so easy to find information now. I was going to talk a little about MAT, medication-assisted treatment, just kind of the stigmatization of it, you know, but this is what, I'll throw this in real quick, is that, you know, so many people judge it so harshly and stuff. But then when I talk to those same people, you know, I ask them like what they think about smoking cessation, like, hey, nicotine patch and stuff like that. And they're like, yeah, that's great. You know, it helped my friend. And even when it fails and stuff, they look at it, some people look at it in a different light, like, you know, you fail at quitting smoking for the 100th time that year. And people say, oh, well, good luck next time and stuff. But sometimes a person relapses and people, see, I told you, he's never going to get it right. He's hopeless and stuff, you know. You know, and nicotine replacement therapy, gum, mints, patches and stuff, it's replacing the nicotine with nicotine. MAT, except for naltrexone, is replacing opioids with an opioid. Same thing, but stigma is completely different. You know, people, it's like, but hey, what do you think about that? Well, why? Also very important, I think, and I haven't really experienced this with anyone I've worked with or whatever, but it certainly happens, you know. And what should you as a coach or a peer worker do if your recovery's in jeopardy, or maybe even if you've relapsed already? You know, ignoring it and hoping you'll just get better and stuff, it's probably not the best way to go. And, you know, the damage it could do to the center and everything else, you know. There again, being open and honest, you know, talk to your coach coordinator, your director, you know, and get whatever help you need, obviously. But, you know, I would strongly advise against, you know, keeping it a secret because this is going to hurt my ability to coach or whatever. But it's, yeah, you're right. It's going to hurt your ability to coach if you're you're using at that time and stuff. And the coaches need to trust us and see us as a role model. And if they see us at the bar or on the corner and like thinking, well, why the hell should I have this person help me? Because they're not walking the walk. So, and just for your own sake, you get the help. If you try to hide it, make it a secret, even if you're just like worried about it, talk to somebody. That's what we do as coaches. That's what we should do. Practice what we preach. Talk to somebody. Do what you can. Just don't ignore the signs. Like anyone in recovery should be aware of what your own triggers and signs are and stuff. One of my personal ones, talking about honesty and stuff, is like, looking back, learning from some of my relapses, my dishonesty factor went like through the roof. And I'd be lying about stupid stuff. I'd tell somebody, yeah, I was doing a presentation earlier in this room that was painted green, and it's like, it was painted yellow, but why the hell would I lie about it? I don't know. I did. So when I caught myself lying for stupid things, not even just to get out of something or make myself look good, it's like, wow, I think you probably got to focus. You could probably something going on there, Bri. So, and just like knowing your own warning signs,
I think the most important information I got around that, I was told by my sponsor that I had to be very clear that just because I work in the field of recovery, that does not mean it's my recovery. And that those things that I did to obtain my recovery, I need to continue to do above and beyond working in the field of recovery.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely, that's an awesome point you brought up, Hal. Because and I've heard that from other people and stuff too. And I didn't necessarily understand it at first, especially because part of my recovery was coming here to volunteer because I needed structure and stuff, and so it's hard for me to kind of extricate the two. But you're right, because you shouldn't be doing this so you don't relapse. You should be doing this for the more obvious reasons. But you need your own recovery. You can't place it on helping somebody else. That could be a component, but that should not be all of it. Because what if you move or you stop coaching or doing something else, you might just fall apart, well-rounded. Obviously very important too and also talking about meeting people and speaking up, but representing your center in the community and representing just peer recovery in general. Don't just talk the talk, practice what you preach. Easier said than done, but keep it in mind, I try to keep it in mind. Using the right language, presenting or just talking to as many groups as possible. I think sometimes it's awesome like to go to a treatment center or whatever and talk to people, but if you talk to the Rotary Club or the whoever, just to let them, even if there's not any specific one in that room that may need our services, they know that our services exist and that we're not, that's that shelter, right? Is that, it's like, no, it's a drop-in center, no. So people know, and it just raises awareness in the community and makes, changes the whole look and stuff. The other thing too I'll mention is like elevator speeches. Did they cover that in the academy? Yeah. Basically what that is having like coming up with a 30-second or 90-second or whatever spiel about what you do. If you meet somebody, the idea is that you're waiting for an elevator, you're in the elevator, you can express to somebody in that amount of seconds, what you do and, can kind of like educate somebody, so kind of like you can formulate a script or whatever, like cover these things and stuff. So if given the opportunity, you're ready and you're not like, well, yeah, I'm a recovery coach and this, and I work with people, and if you can kind of a little more confident, practice makes perfect, and they say, hey, I'm do this, and then we do this, that's one more person that knows, what you do and what we do. Just being prepared, last but not least, I wrote this when I was kind of on a tear. So to be a good or even great coach, this much you must remember. Actually, it was much stronger. I edited it, but courage. I see this with so many people and stuff. Don't just talk about yourself. I've known some coaches that the coachee would tell me later. It's like the coach just talked the whole hour about herself. It's like I'm sure she thought she was helping somebody. But she probably boring the hell out. It's like, how about asking questions or listening? And I would it's not about you. It's about the person we're coaching. If you're doing this to make yourself feel good about yourself, or you're eager, you're doing it for your recovery, that's not the goal. We're about somebody else, listening to them. I would say, use yourself as an example, but pretty sparingly, and at the right times, where it actually is going to help that person and support them, help them feel that you understand. and same thing, never be working harder than the person you're coaching. We're not experts, not experts on anything. However, as coaches, we do have a powerful combination of experience, training, and a passion and desire to help other people, which is really, it's amazing, and it really, we help so many people and stuff. So I mean, it's awesome everything you guys do, and and just those things makes it all. We don't need to be highly trained in a degree or anything. Don't need to be an expert, but just listening, using some of these basic skills that you learn at the academy and afterwards, is going to make a difference in someone's life. And don't want to probably think about saving their life, but I'm sure that happens too. So. Ooh, 12:01. I was a minute late. Questions. Thanks, Ted. Questions, thoughts. I know we had a lot of discussion in there already, but anything to follow up? Some of the bigger things, is in your handouts and stuff, like about pause and Google Voice and stuff, but there was silence. Okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time, and
Thank you.